Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us for another Sedaru Live. I'm excited to be talking about water quality today. It's one of the areas of Sedaru that we have a good number of customers around the United States that are using Sedaru for this, but I think it's a somewhat overlooked area when we start thinking about how you can utilize some of our tools to help improve how you're running your water utility. If this is your first time joining us on a Sedaru Live, thanks for joining. The Zoom webinar application that we're using for the webinars it's really similar to any other Zoom meetings that you've probably been in. Probably the biggest difference is that there is a Q&A button that you'll see on the panel, and that's where you're going to go ahead and ask questions. These webinars work great the more questions that you ask. We want them to be interactive. We want you to get as much information from us in a short amount of time, and so going ahead and firing your questions into there is a great way to do that. As we're going through the presentation and talking about things, I'll take a few moments out and answer some of those questions as we're going forward here. So don't be shy out there. From a content perspective, we're going to be about 20-25 minutes today. We're going to try to keep it fairly brief, but like I said, leaving plenty of time for your questions and to get those answered. If you don't already, look for us on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, or whatever your social media platform of choice is. We share a lot of good information in there, along with information about more of these webinars, and we're planning to keep doing them. We've got one scheduled for the next couple of weeks here, and keep sharing more pretty interesting information with folks around how you can use Sedaru, how you can help solve some of your utility problems, and some smart ways, I think, to apply technology to a lot of your day-to-day kind of operations. And in that same realm of how do you apply technology smart, we talk about this idea of drops with everyone, really. And drops is the Sedaru concept for how do you implement technology in a stepwise approach. In this water quality example, I think it's a great approach. Kind of fits right into this. And the idea is that as you're thinking about how do you want to change your utility, and you want to move towards becoming a smart utility, a self-driving automated utility, how do you get there, right? And you're not going to just accomplish that in one fell swoop. You're not just going to go out and buy a piece of technology and that's just going to solve all your problems for you. It really is a stepwise kind of incremental approach. And Drops is built off the idea of how do we start by thinking about collecting and getting our information digitally, right? And then how do we start using that in real time? Because there's one piece to kind of collect it, and it's another piece to be able to kind of have it in our hands in a real-time basis. And then from there, being able to make optimized decisions, being able to predict what things are going to look like, and then be able to make preemptive decisions off of that. And when we talk about water quality, that hits on a lot of those same kind of ideas there, and hits on that the piece of that. So I think one thing to really we're going to focus on here a little bit is this R in the real-time piece of it, right? Because one of the things that we're passionate about from a Sedaru side of things is being able to help folks both reduce their number of data silos and then use that data much quicker. So when you break down data silos, you tend to get access to that information much, much faster. When we think about water quality, right? Almost everybody is using some sort of digital way in which they're managing all their water quality information, right? If you're a distribution system of any size, you're probably using some kind of LIMS system. At a minimum, you're using, a souped up Excel spreadsheet that's helping you keep track of things. You've got a bunch of regulatory requirements that you've got to meet with this as well too. And so you've got processes in place, right? But one of the things that happens real often with water quality information is it gets segmented off into that limb system, and not necessarily into the hands of the folks working the distribution system as quickly as it should be. And not maybe necessarily looking at and seeing the trends as quickly as you should, right? Because that's one of the important things when we think about water quality is how are things trending, right? If we're looking at, we might notice something that's adverse, and then we want to see what's going on after that, and we want to know, is that getting better or is that getting worse, right? Which direction is it trending? In Sedaru, one of the ideas is we're going to bring all this information together into one place to be able to look at it and see what's happening with those pieces here. So I'm going to start here in the Sedaru Omni application. Sedaru Omni is a web-based application where you're going to be able to bring all your information together, right? And so we've done lots of webinars where we're talking about work orders and being able to complete those tasks and kind of asset management oriented pieces, and Sedaru kind of being a hub for that. Well, it also works as a hub on the water quality side. And in here, I've got a tile that's dedicated, these performance tiles that's dedicated to water quality information. So I'm just going to kind of scroll over here to it. You see I got a bunch in here, but this blue tile is all geared around doing sampling work. And so what we're looking at here is an office-based use of Sedaru Omni. I'm going to switch over into the field application here in a little bit and show you, hey, how does this work for somebody in the field and how they're doing it? But I wanted to start here to give you a good basis for it. And one thing I'm going to do real quick is actually I'm just going to clean up this map a little bit, because you see we've got a bunch of icons here around valves and hydrants and customers and some other stuff. So let me. So one of the ways I do that, I just hit on this controls view piece, and this is kind of central to Omni. One of the things everybody can do with Omni is you can customize it to just show the information that you really care about, right? That's important to you. And so let me, oh, look at that. My window's hiding that on me. So let me just hit X out of here. And so now we'll go back and look at this window. And you see my map's kind of cleaned up a little bit. I can see some things a little bit better. And you see this blue dot in the middle. That's one of my sample sites that are in here. So you can start by loading all of your sample sites directly into Sedaru. Sedaru's built off the GIS, right? So really the best way to do it is to make sure you have all your sample sites in the GIS. If you don't, you can manually add them as well too, but there's a lot of good benefits of making sure that you have this information as part of your GIS as well anyway. So I can see one of my sample sites that's listed right here with the little work order icon associated with it, and scroll in. I also can go and I can look for sample sites. In this case, all my sample sites start with the word sample. So I'm just going to use the search function in here. And the search function is actually going to pull up other sample site locations for me. So it makes it really easy to kind of find and access these things. So I could go and I could click on one of these, and I could use the location feature here, and that's going to zoom me right into that particular spot, into that particular sample site. I can see that there. So I can find all of my sample sites really easily. I can have a tile set up that gives me a listing of all those sample sites in there as well too. What I also find common is, and I'm going to show you how you create a work order for doing samples, is you can create a performance tile that has your sample sites in it, or various sample site routes in there, depending on how you want to do scheduling, right? So you might have, again, depending on your system, you might have sort of A day and B day in terms of samples, right? So today's an A day or an A week, and it's like, I'm going to go get these samples from these sites, and the next one's another one. And so you can kind of organize your sample sites around that however you want. We also have folks that have integrated their limb system directly to Sedaru as well too. And so the limb system might be generating the methodology for when and where you want to sample. That pushes right into Sedaru and has those pieces automatically kind of created there. But on a simple side, if I just wanted to create a sample work order, I select the sample site, and then I come in here and just say create work order. And then what I can do is I can come in and just create the work order. So in this case, I'm just going to do a regular water quality sample entry. All of this is customizable. So you could, if you have different types of samples you're going to take, and everybody's got different workflows, and every state's got some different regulations, et cetera. All of that's configurable and can be set up directly to what makes the most sense for you and what fits into how you want to do things. Then we'll go ahead and assign it to our person that's going to do that water quality sample. In this case, it's going to be me. So we'll choose my name here. I'll hit assign. And then I can go in and have it just start immediately. I also have the ability to set up recurrence options. Okay, so if I want to go through and just set up a standard recurrence that says, hey, I'm going to go sample this particular site, every 2 weeks, let's say. So I'll choose weekly. Then I'll just say every 2 weeks. We're going to do it every Thursday. It's got today's date in there, but we'll choose an end date, and maybe I want to schedule this out for the rest of the year or so. So I could come in here and say, we're going to schedule it out through the end of the year. And then I'll just hit this setting here, which kind of removes things that don't get completed. And that way you don't end up with a bunch of kind of orphan work orders that if you miss something or whatnot. Not as applicable in water quality sampling, but sometimes for other preventative maintenance tasks that you might schedule in Sedaru. If you're not getting to them, you can have them just sort of automatically go away. So you're not stuck with a big, gigantic list of them. So doing that there lets me go ahead and automatically create that sample site for the person in the field, and has that item scheduled for them. I'm going to go into the field application here in a minute, but I wanted to show you one other thing I can do in Omni, and I'm going to come back in here after we go to the field too. But in addition to looking at this information on the map, I can also go and look at it from a trend perspective as well too, and I can pull in information that might be interesting to me. So, for example, here I can look at a particular tank. I'm going to drag that tank into here, and I can see exactly what the flow looks like in that particular tank. And here's what it's looked like for the past day. Here's what it's looked like for the past week, and I can see all that information right on the graph in here. And you see everything's kind of grouped by asset type within here. But then I can also have tiles in here that are showing me, hey, giving me results off of that information. So we're gonna dig into that piece. The other reason I wanted to show you this is that we do have customers out there that have automated water quality sensors in the system. And so Sedaru can tie into that real-time data as well, right? So I'm getting my sampling information, that's gonna end up in here. I'm also getting real-time SCADA information, real-time sensor information that also is making its way into here. So now I've got a single kind of unified place that I can look and respond to things. It becomes even more valuable if I start thinking about pulling in customer-related requests, or customer, if I want to pull in a dirty water request, or taste and odor complaints, or sort of other kind of customer water quality oriented issues. I can pull those in and have them right on the map as well too, so that I can work with all those. So lots of kind of options and ways in which you can start working with that water quality information. So I'm going to do this water quality sample in the field on my iPad. So I'm going to get that popped up here real quick. Let's do that. Take just 1 second. You should see that pop up on screen here momentarily. All right. And let's go into the Field Force application. Okay, so this is Field Force. For those of you that haven't seen it before, Field Force is designed, like the name says, as an easy way for your field staff to be able to complete work orders and tasks, right? And so we've done lots of examples of, hey, here's how I fill out a work order, here's how I do this, all those sort of pieces. Well, similar kind of pieces apply from a water quality perspective. So across the top, what I'm going to see are all the different work orders or tasks that are assigned to me. And you see here, I've got 811 locate dig tickets assigned to me. I've got hydrant and valve tasks. I've got, pump station related tasks in here that I can see. I've got tank related tasks. But if I scroll over, I'm going to see sample related tasks that are assigned to me. And so I can just touch on those, and it's going to bring me right to that location there to be able to interact with that sample site work order or work orders that have been assigned to me. And to actually go ahead and complete my work order is really simple. I can just touch right on that particular sample entry form. What's nice here from a field perspective, right? So I can see all the information I need about that particular sample site. You can customize all the pieces of information that your folks in the field are going to see. And sometimes these sample sites are, they're not necessarily the most straightforward place, depending on where you're getting the sample from and, all of those kind of pieces. So you can add other information in there, comments, as much detail as you need. It's really, really especially helpful too, to be able to see the sample locations on the map and where I need to be able to go to. If you think about, some of the staff that you have doing water quality sampling, and like I was saying before, you might have an A day and a B day, and people might have a certain route that they're used to, but then you need to move people around, and you need to have somebody go in a certain place or somebody go somewhere else. They've got all of this stuff right on the map for them. They can see the location of all those sample sites in front of them really easily. So I have that information. The other thing you'll see here is you see that asset history. So if I've got previous samples that I've taken there, which most likely I would, they've got the ability to go back in and see some of the information from that, right? So that makes it really easy for them to just kind of see what's been going on there. If they see something weird, they can kind of go back and check a previous one too, and and just understand what's going on there. So I'll go ahead and I'll hit start, and that's going to immediately bring me to the form to do that in the sample there. I'm doing this on an iPad. You also could be doing this on a phone as well too, which I've seen a lot of our water quality sampling folks like the phone application also. Some benefits of that. But then I can come in and I can fill out my form right from here. Now, the fields that you're going to have on the form are 100% up to you, right? So all of this is very configurable. Sedaru has we have a whole library of forms that have been built that folks around the country use for different pieces. Water quality sampling tends to be one of the more kind of heavily customized or configured forms though when you use it, because again, everybody's got some different ways and processes and things they're thinking about with that, right? So I can put an ID in here because I'm going to typically have some kind of sample ID associated with it. This is another area that if you're integrated to a LIMS system, some of these things might be pre-populated for you. In this particular system, there's a couple different areas in the system, a couple different system IDs. So they, go ahead and put some of those pieces in here. We're doing a routine sample in here, so we'll fill that out. It's worth noting too, one of the nice things about this, and especially when I want to come back and do water quality reporting, is if I limit the amount that people are typing, that I'm going to have much, much better data quality in here, right? And certainly what this is doing, because I have seen lots of workflows where everything's done on paper, and then somebody's got to take that paper and transcribe it back into the LIMS or into an Excel sheet or some of that, and this certainly eliminates that. So we'll go ahead and just fill out, some of the other pieces in here. And then we can get into our actual water quality values if we want. And I'm just going to throw some numbers in here. And we'll fill out some numbers. One of the things I can do, which is not on this particular form, but we do have folks that have it set up, is I can set up what's conditional formatting on these things as well too. So I can go in and say, hey, if a value is above a certain level or below a certain level, have it trigger a warning, have it change a color of something, have it basically flag and say to the person taking the sample, like, hey, something might be off right here. We also can set this up so that you're seeing real-time kind of SCADA information come in here as well too. So again, if you've got water quality sensors and some of those pieces, sometimes those things can be helpful and really empower your field staff. Because you think about it, your water quality sampling folks are really your front line in a lot of ways of your notification system of knowing something's going wrong in the distribution system. So I always take the philosophy of, if you can empower them with a little bit more information presented in a smart way, that you're really doing good things to help your system in there. So we'll punch in, I don't know, the nitrates. We'll put in a THM, so we'll say our THMs are in good shape. And then that's too high. There we go. Something that makes sense there. And then I can do things like, am I taking a coliform sample? Again, the workflows are really up to you for how you're gonna manage some of these things, right? And now I can go ahead and I can punch in my date in here as well. You notice at the bottom, the little total ammonia piece, you can set up any field level calculations that you want to have from within here as well too. And make that, so you're eliminating mistakes made in the field. You're just taking some work away from the field staff of things that they got to figure out at the same time. Let's see. Question here. Let's see. We use a third party to, I'm looking at a question that just came in. We'll answer this. We have a third party that does weekly samples. Once the sample stations are the GIS, and sell other means. Yeah, no, it's a good question. So if you're using third party folks to do things, contractors and some of those other pieces, there's always there's a couple different options and ways that you can work with and manage that data. We have a lot of folks that use third-party contractors, whether it's for water quality sampling, or whether it's for like 811 tickets, or just turning valves or that kind of thing. Some of them, what they do is they actually we allow you to use your Sedaru licensing can be used by that contractor. You just have to provide the users for them, and so they could actually use the Sedaru application and have that information. They can input it out in the field, and that way you've got immediate access to a lot of that information. So that's really useful. The other side of it is if you want to bring in other data, and so you've got a completely separate process, and then you want to bring it in. There's typically quite a few ways to do that. So Sedaru is built off of the Esri platform. We use the Esri geodatabase and all the related technologies with that to manage all the underlying data. So there's nothing proprietary. So setting up a process that external data can be loaded into the GIS and then viewed and utilized within Sedaru is typically pretty straightforward. There's just some implementation work and setup work to kind of get those things going, but it's certainly possible. All right, let's finish up on our good question though. So certainly keep the questions going in here. So I'm doing this water quality sample. The other thing I can do with all of these pieces in here is I can typically add pictures or photos into here. It looks like I might have I was messing around with this form, so I might have broke something in here. But typically I can add attachments and other pieces right from within there, and you're going to be able to have those pictures and other pieces as part of it. So again, which is really nice on a water quality sample. One of the things I'll see is you might be recording all this stuff electronically, but you've got a bottle with a label and an ID number and all that sort of stuff. So taking a picture of it, having that electronic record of it, helps with all of the ongoing documentation and troubleshooting on anything later on. I could punch some comments in there if I wanted to as well. And then I've got the ability to, if I wanted to, I could add labor, equipment, material in here, right? As we, I think as everybody in the U.S. has seen here, I guess for the world for that matter, over the last few months, right? We're living in a world where, some serious economic impacts going on. And so wanting to have better ability to track time and labor and all the things that go into it, I think is going to become more important for a lot of utilities. So you might not typically be thinking about, hey, what's the what's the labor that we spend on doing water quality sampling? But in this case, I could do that from here. So my name's highlighted in here because I got the work order. So, we'll say we spent, say we spent 30 minutes doing this. We'll punch in a half an hour of time and save that. And now that time is going to get associated directly to that work order. And I've got the ability now to kind of pull together reporting on, hey, how much time are we spending on water quality sampling and all those pieces, which I think, can be certainly helpful from a management perspective. So now I'll save that, and I can, you see it now shows up in the asset history for me. I can see, I've got the ability to now kind of go back and see what's going on with that. What's neat here now too is that information now is going right into that Sedaru database, and now it's available for others to be able to look at. I had 2 work orders assigned to me. You see the little sample tile up there goes to 1. If I'm back just looking at that list and I swipe to the right on here, I've got a completed sample entry form, and that shows up right on here as well too, so that the folks in the field can really manage what's going on, and they can kind of easily see what they've got left to do and what they need to complete. So that's kind of how that field application works. I'm going to show you also some results from an Omni side of things here. So let me, I'm going to switch back on my sharing here. Give me a second. And we're getting close to the bottom half of the hour here. So if you've got other questions, feel free to fire those questions away. Happy to dig in and answer some of those pieces. What I want to show you is what you can do with some of the results that come out of this. And I have some different screenshots I wanted to share with you, right? So I can say, if you look here, like I can have tiles set up that would say, hey, show me, in this case, I'm looking for, really high pHs in my system, right? So I'm trying to, and everybody's got their different water quality parameters and things that they're trying to manage, and obviously the bigger, more spread out your distribution system is, the more this becomes important. So you look on this map, all the little icons that you see with beakers are all different sample points all throughout the system, right? And then what I'm seeing here is I have a tile here that has this 13 listed, and that's showing me the location of 13 sites that I have that have given me, pH readings that I want to keep an eye on. Same idea here, except I'm looking at chlorine residuals now, right? So I can come in here and I can say, all right, I've got one spot here that's got a chlorine residual below 0.4. And then what's neat is what I can do is actually go into that sample site, drill into it a little bit more, and now I can start looking at overall trends on things as well. And now this is all data that you're going to be able to kind of see out of your LIMS system, right? But again, the idea here is how do we take some of this pertinent information that might be just in the LIMS system that just a handful of people are looking at, and how do you integrate it now with my map, with all my other distribution system operations to see all the details of that. And so now I can look at a similar kind of trend view that we were looking at before, as that SCADA information, and say, okay, in this case, how's the chlorine residual been trending at this particular sample site? It was low for a while, it's now up, and then looks like it's been up and down a little bit over the last few weeks, right? Which again is really interesting now when we think about in all of our distribution systems out here, we're seeing in many cases, you're seeing less consumption, right? Because a lot of businesses aren't using as much water. Your residential consumption, though, is up, which means that in a lot of systems, the velocities are all over the place, right? And your water age and some of your pieces that you're used to are probably fluctuating in ways that are a little weird. And from a macro level, at the treatment plant and some of that stuff, things probably haven't changed all that much. But in the weeds of your distribution system, things do change, right? So the normal problems that you would have, or this kind of the normal water quality hotspots that you're dealing with in this case, might have moved, might be a little bit different, and this lets you kind of drill right into that. So really, I think a really cool application of that. And then kind of the last thing I wanted to show you, in addition to kind of looking at things from that like overall map perspective, I also can set up dashboards within Omni. I don't show this as much because it's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of basic stuff, but I think it can be kind of useful when you start thinking about water quality and it's like, hey man, there's 10, 15 different things I want to be looking at and seeing and know what's going on here, right? So here's a bunch of tiles, like is all our water quality sampling on pace, right? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? You know, keeping the lights on kind of stuff. And then what are some of the immediate results on things? And, you know, are we, in this case, you know, this particular system, you know, free ammonia is something that they're constantly keeping an eye on, obviously chlorine residuals. And then some things happen as well as, they notice some things around water quality temp as things warm up. So they like to kind of really keep an eye on that. And we think about that drops idea of how do we start looking at data that's coming in real time, and then being able to move that to a way that we're doing some predictive things with it, right? And trying to preemptively make some smarter decisions on pieces. So really lots of ways to not just kind of collect and use the information, but to be able to benefit from it. Well, good. So we're wrapping up here in terms of time. Like I said, I'd like to kind of keep these to 30 minutes. So if you've got some questions, go ahead and get those fired in here. One question that comes up a lot from people too is on that field side of things. Can I do this offline, right? And we'd like to say, yeah, use things in real time, right? Because it works better in real time. But there's also just reality sometimes of places in your distribution system where you're going to be getting water quality samples from that are not going to be able to have great cell service, right? I'm in a basement, I'm going down into a pump station, you know, all these kind of things. Cell service sometimes is bad. So yeah, you can work offline for all of those pieces as well. So the field application just seamlessly will move back and forth between a disconnected and a connected environment and really be able to, from the field perspective, it's easy. They don't have to really worry about it. It's just automatically going to have those pieces there and available to them. Well, good. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Everybody's going to get a follow-up email on this. If there's other questions, other answers to things that you're thinking of later, reply to that email. Feel free to fire those questions away to our team. We'll get them answered. We'll get back in touch with you. We like to follow up with everybody from these webinars as well, too. So you might be getting a phone call from us. And we're happy to dig into this or really any of the other pieces of Sedaru functionality and to kind of keep sharing the information with you and going from there. So thanks everybody for your time. We look forward to seeing you on another webinar, and stay safe out there, and thank you.